Hey guys, welcome back to Sacred Vedic Astrology. My name is Samantha, and I feel so blessed to be a professional Vedic sidereal astrologer. So today we're going to discuss Jupiter or Gurudev in Vedic astrology, and I'm really excited to discuss this topic today because I think it's really important. And in my previous video, we went into the influence of Saturn when it's really strong on the foundational aspects of the chart, right? So we discussed Saturn on the ascendant, Saturn with the first ruler, Saturn on the sun, Saturn on the moon, Saturn at Makarka, right? And what kind of lifetime that creates, right? It's a very Saturnian sort of life. So now I want to go into the influence of Jupiter. So if someone has a lot of Jupiterian influence, right? Jupiter tightly aspecting the ascendant, tightly aspecting the ascendant ruler, tightly aspecting the moon. I find this to be the most strong with the first house, the first ruler, and the moon. But if it's with the sun, of course, we're going to get some Jupiter influence there as well, too. We can also take this meaning to someone who has a very strong Jupiter in its own sign, in the Mul Trikona sign, in a Kendra angle house, right? So if someone has like the Jupiter Hamsa Yoga, then this Jupiter influence is really going to be felt as well too. So keep in mind, Vedic astrology is a very complex system of analysis. I never want someone to watch a video and think, oh, I have Jupiter with my sun or with my moon. Okay, like I'm just lucky my whole life, right? It's not like that. We have to check the Jupiter placement. We have to check the other aspects, right? Like Jupiter aspecting the moon versus Jupiter and Saturn and Ketu and Mars aspecting the moon is a very different sort of Jupiter influence. It's best if it's not hit by a bunch of other malefics, right? So we never want to, oversimplify something that's very complex. But for the most part, if someone has a strong Jupiterian influence in the chart, this is going to apply to their life experience. Okay. So there is nothing more luck-producing than a strong Jupiter influence, okay? And I also want to slightly discuss how this really connects to why I find sidereal astrology to be much more accurate than tropical astrology, okay? And here's my little story on that, because I feel like this is really, really important. So in Western tropical astrology, I actually have Jupiter in Capricorn debilitated. Okay. Jupiter does not like to be in Capricorn. Okay. And that's not relevant to my life experience at all. Okay. And then we take it to the Vedic sidereal system. I have Jupiter aspecting my ascendant, Jupiter aspecting my ascendant ruler very tightly. I have a Jupiter Hamsa Yoga. I have Jupiter in Sagittarius in my 7th house. So I'm very Jupiter in sidereal astrology, okay? And there is no planet that I relate to more than Jupiter. My life is very Jupiterian, even though, I've had such an intense life experience in certain points of life. I always have that Jupiter luck. Since I was younger, people would always be like, how are you so lucky? You're just lucky. Things work out for you. And I would always get told that, my whole life. And I even had people who would kind of I hate to use the word jealous because it's it just sounds bad. It just sounds bad, okay? But people who would not like the luck that Jupiter would produce sometimes for me in my life, right? And so in the Western tropical system, I would have a very debilitated Jupiter, and that doesn't make any sense, right? And then we go to the sidereal system, and Jupiter is one of my strongest planetary influences, aspecting my first house ruler, in a Kendra angle house in its own sign, Jupiter Hamsa Yoga. And that is my life story. That's my life experience. I definitely do not have a debilitated Jupiter. So that's a little tidbit of, how much more accurate in my perspective sidereal astrology is over tropical. But anywho's, let's get into the influence of Jupiter. So Jupiter is luck, fortune, spirituality, wisdom, foreign lands, different cultures, travels, gurus, guides, teachers, higher knowledge, higher learning, philosophical wisdom. Okay. So if someone has a strong Jupiter influence in their chart, ascendant ruler on the moon, tightly aspecting a Jupiter Hamsa Yoga, someone is very Jupiterian in their life experience, right? They're going to attract a lot more luck, a lot more, positive experiences than the average person, right? So even if someone, and this is the point I really want to emphasize in this video, even if someone has a lot of afflicted, houses or planets in the chart and they have a really strong Jupiter aspect, right? Jupiter's really tightly on the moon. Jupiter's really tight on the ascendant. Jupiter's really tight on the ascendant ruler. They're going to be okay. Like, they're going to be good. They're going to somehow be fine throughout those life experiences, where it's like an example where maybe someone, has a really strong Jupiter influence and they, get in a minor car accident, but then they're fine and they get a bunch of money from that accident, right? That would be like Jupiter playing out or working in someone's life, where they always have this protective, lucky, benefic influence with them, right? Really, really powerful on the moon, on the ascendant, tightly aspecting these placements, or on the ascendant ruler. You're going to really see that Jupiter and how it plays out for someone, right? So they're going to have, it doesn't mean they don't have difficult experiences. Of course, that's not real life. It just more so means that, like, beyond the difficult experiences, beyond the afflictions on the houses, they usually come out fine on the other side of most things, right? So they're going to have this luck with them. It's like a spiritual luck and a spiritual protection aspect as well, too. So you'll find if someone has a lot of strong Jupiter, they're going to just like be spiritually protected throughout experiences. I remember my second Vedic teacher, James, would say, if I'm going to be in a dangerous situation, I want to be right next to someone who has Jupiter really tightly aspecting their moon or their ascendant, because that person's going to be lucky in that experience, right? And, Jupiter is that really benefic, lucky placement. And you'll find these people also have a lot of strong spiritual luck, insight, and wisdom that follows them as well, too. So Jupiter is obviously a great benefic, right? I love Jupiter so much. Who doesn't love Jupiter, right? And it's one of the most powerful aspects that we can have, to have tightly on the moon, the first house or the first house ruler, for someone to have that spiritual luck, that benefic influence throughout their life. It's almost like, think about it this way. Someone has a strong Jupiter, they're like a good luck charm, right? Like, have you ever met those people that when you're with them, good things just happen, they attract good experiences, they're kind of just like in the flow of life? That's strong Jupiter. If you're around someone where it just feels like things are never going right and everything is always kind of off, and that's probably going to be like a debilitated Jupiter or a lot of malefic aspects onto someone's Jupiter placement. Again, I'm not trying to like judge debilitated Jupiter. I'm just speaking truth, which is also Jupiter. Jupiter is truth. It's just the way it is. Like, being around strong, positive Jupiter influence, it's going to also bring positivity to other people as well, too. I have that really strong Jupiter, and my friend literally texted me recently saying, "You're like my good luck charm. Only make it to our workout classes when I'm with you. Otherwise, I always miss them." So, like, verbatim, someone texted me with my strong Jupiter being like, "You're a good luck charm." Okay. That is Jupiter. It's good luck. It's positive energy. It's optimism as well, too. So the beautiful thing about Jupiter is it is that more optimistic energy. So you'll find when someone has strong Jupiter, really, you're going to see this with Jupiter on the moon. I would say that's like the most potent manifestation, because the moon is the mind. It's the way that someone thinks. It's the way they view things. And that's going to be someone who is naturally optimistic, right? Even if things are going wrong in life, they're going to have this like optimistic outlook, this optimistic viewpoint. They're going to naturally go towards the more positive viewpoint of life, right? They're going to be, oh, it's okay. It's always going to be fine. Things will work out. There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of faith with Jupiter. That's also really, really important. Jupiter is our faith. It's our ability to have blind faith and blind trust that everything is going to work out. So if someone has a strong Jupiter, they're that kind of person that's like, I know everything is going to be good. I know things are always going to work out for me. I'm not worried. Someone has a debilitated Jupiter, they are always worried that things are going to go wrong. They don't have that blind trust in the universe, right? Like, a strong Jupiter is a lot of spiritual trust. It's a lot of faith. It's a lot of, ability to trust the unseen, is that strong Jupiter as well, too. So someone has a strong Jupiterian influence, They're going to be lucky. They're going to be protected. They're really, really protected throughout their life. Like, trust me, if someone has Jupiter really tight on the moon, really tight on the ascendant, there is a spiritual protection force that is around them. And I know that sounds more maybe like mystical or a little bit more woo than my usual Vedic astrological stuff, because, Vedic astrology is such like a pragmatic analytical system of astrology, but you will find that Jupiter is like this spiritual protective force around people. I had a client not that long ago where he had Jupiter very tightly on his ascendant. And I told him, I was like, even if you get in trouble in this lifetime, you're going to be lucky. You can even have like these near-death experiences and you survive them. And he was like, that's so crazy because, and then he went in to tell me about a near-death experience that he was so lucky with. And I'm telling you guys, Jupiter is just a protective force around someone. It is luck. It is the ability for them to come out of experiences on the other side, and they're going to be good. They are going to be good. It doesn't mean that they don't have hard life experiences. It doesn't mean that they don't struggle in life. It doesn't mean that they don't have afflicted houses. It's not that. It's more so that they come out of things lucky and protected, and they can see the bigger picture, okay? Anyone who has a strong Jupiter, they can see the bigger viewpoints, the bigger picture of why things had to happen. They see the spiritual reason. It's a lot of optimism. It's a lot of positivity. It's a lot of luck. It's a lot of trust. It's a lot of faith with strong Jupiter, okay? Now, another point of analysis that we would look to for luck would also be the ninth house, right? So ninth house ruler, planets aspecting the ninth, we would also look there to see how someone's luck is unfolding in this lifetime, right? Ninth house is the house of luck as well too. But for the most part, a strong Jupiter is going to bring that lucky, benefic influence into the life experience, okay? So Jupiter is also guru, guides, teachers, right? So if someone has a strong Jupiter, they either do well with teachers and guides and guidance, right? Or they become guides, they become teachers, they become counselors. They become those people that are trying to uplift other people, right? So there's nothing actually more powerful for a chart of a counselor or a guide or someone who's giving guidance than a strong Jupiter, okay? Because that Jupiterian influence, again, Jupiter is optimism, it's uplifting, it's positive. So if you're going to guide someone, if you're going to counsel someone, you have to be able to uplift them. You have to be positive. You have to be able to elevate the energy, right? So a lot of, astrologers, a lot of counselors, a lot of teachers have a strong Jupiter as well, too. I always remember, guys, this is my Venus-Mars telling stories. My second Vedic teacher also has Venus-Mars conjunction, and he would always tell all these stories, and I'm like, that's me too. But I always remember one of my first, it wasn't one of my first clients, but it was one of my first in-person clients, and she really, really wanted me to do her chart in person, right? And I was so nervous, and I think I was about a year, maybe a year and a half into Vedic astrology. I had switched from Western astrology, and I was nervous, and I was like, gosh, doing this in person adds an element of pressure, right? It was my first time doing an in-person Vedic astrology session. I remember driving there and just being okay, Jupiter's in the 10th house, and I was reciting some of the placements, and I was really, really nervous. And I did her chart reading, and she had one of the most powerful Jupiter placements I'd ever seen, and it was aspecting her 10th house. And I was like, you know what? Were you a teacher? Are you a teacher? And she started laughing, and she was like, I've been a teacher for, I think, 40 years it was. And so that was one of the first moments when I was like, okay, yep, Vedic astrology is the more accurate system. But also, Jupiter is teachers, guides, counselors, those who have a lot of wisdom, right? And the reason I always remember that is because Jupiter is guru. Jupiter is the teacher, okay? And her Jupiter was so strong, aspecting her 10th house, and she was a teacher for, I believe it was 30 or 40 years. Jupiter is the counselor, Jupiter is the guide, Jupiter is the teacher, Jupiter is the guru, okay? Now, Jupiter can go multitude of ways. Like if someone has a strong Jupiter, they can be a traditional teacher. She was a more traditional teacher. She was like the education system for 30 or 40 years, but she was a teacher. She was a guru. Or Jupiter can be more non-conventional teachers, right? So it can also be spiritual teachers. It can be people teaching astrology, people teaching Ayurveda, right? It can go into all these different realms of life, but Jupiter is naturally the teacher. It's the counselor. It's the guide. It's the wise one. Wisdom and philosophical insight with strong Jupiter as well, too. Okay. So strong Jupiter is where I would immediately look if someone wants to be like a counselor, a guide to others. That's going to be really important to see how their Jupiter is acting in the chart. If they're going to be able to guide and uplift other people, we want to see a strong Jupiter preferably. Okay. So let's go over some of the main points. Jupiter is luck. It's spiritual luck. I'm telling you guys, this never fails. If someone has a really strong Jupiter influence on their chart, it is almost like they have a protective force of luck around them. You will see it. You will find this over and over again in charts, okay? Okay, the next point is Jupiter's optimism. It's the ability to view the positives of life, right? If someone has a strong Jupiter, they're not going to be the person who's like, oh, woe is me, life is so hard. That's more the Saturn influence. I hope I'm not offending anyone when I say that. I love people with strong Saturn because I have Saturn with Ketu, so Saturn is like a void in my chart. So when I see people with really strong Saturn, I actually really, really admire them a lot. So I'm not saying this to offend my strong Saturnian people out there, but I'm just saying that it's a different energy, right? A lot of Saturn can be that more negative, nihilistic sort of viewpoint. Things don't work out. Jupiter is going to be like, I see the positive. I see how things can work out. I see the optimism. I see the good. That's really Jupiter. Okay. So it's going to be that. It's also going to be a strong guide, counselor, teacher. Someone who can bestow wisdom and teachings upon other people is going to be a strong Jupiter. All right. That's a huge aspect of it. Okay. So strong Jupiter is either really good with teachers, gurus, guides. They're either going to do well. They might have a really important guide or teacher in their life, or they become the guru, the guide, the teacher, the counselor, etc. And again, it can be traditional or non-traditional. It can really go either way. The thing about astrology is you never want to assume something. You want to give all the different meanings and then let that person tell you which meaning they fall into. I feel like the mistakes that I would make early into my career as an astrologer, it was I would say, oh, you have Jupiter in your 10th. You might be like a spiritual teacher, and they would be a traditional teacher, right? So it's like you don't want to assume which way it's going. You just want to tell them the meaning of Jupiter. Okay, so it can be a spiritual teacher, a spiritual guide, an astrologer, or it can be a counselor. It could be a career counselor. It could be, a health coach. It could be a traditional teacher, but Jupiter is going to really be that person who's like, okay, you can do this. You got this. Let's go. Jupiter is like, woo, let's go. It's a lot of optimism. It's a lot of positivity. Okay. So that's a really important aspect of Jupiter. All right. Now, another aspect is, for the most part, we would have to look at the 9th house as well too, but strong Jupiter is going to give an interest in different philosophical teachings, different cultures, right? Someone can have a love for different types of philosophical teachings, Buddhism, the Vedas, etc. They're going to be interested in a vast array of teachings. Spiritually, they're not going to be so boxed in. Jupiter is more open. It's more open-minded. It's more expansive, right? Jupiter is a very expansive sort of planet. Something that I find really funny is, sometimes when someone has a lot of strong Jupiter, Rahu, I see this a lot with Jupiter and Rahu. I had a client recently who he had Jupiter and Rahu in his first house, and he's larger than life. He was like, people always stop me at the airport and they're like, what are you wearing? It's expansive. So Jupiter in the first house can be quite literally expansive. It means someone has this big energy about them. They might have a different look. They might be tall. There's something expansive. But Jupiter is also big, larger than life sort of energy. I get comments on my videos. People are always like, do you have a strong Jupiter or Jupiter aspect of your first? So apparently I look like Jupiter, right? I have that like Jupiterian physical like influence. It's going to give someone this very like expanded sort of energy. It's very expansive in that way as well too. All right. So these are the main points I wanted to make about strong Jupiterian influence. Like I am telling you guys, there is nothing more protective and luck inducing than a really strong Jupiter on the ascendant, aspecting the ascendant ruler, aspecting the moon. It's really giving this luck and this optimism and this protection throughout the life experience, right? And it's one of those things that is such like a minute aspect of chart analysis that I always look to. I'm like, do they have Jupiter on the ascendant? Do they have Jupiter with the moon? Because if they do, it doesn't necessarily matter what happens in life. They're going to come out on the other side. Okay, they're going to be protected through those experiences, right? I have seen through my experience, like what a very debilitated Jupiter can do for someone. And it's just, the best way I could explain it is the luck aspect is not so much there. Like, I feel like I've known a lot of people with debilitated Jupiter where they just have a more unlucky sort of life. And again, I'm not saying this to like scare anyone or put out negativity, but it's just true. Like, it's just truth. And to me, astrology is truth, right? Like, I'm not going to like lie and like sugarcoat something because it's, you know, a truth-seeking system. It's a truth-seeking modality. That's what I was trying to get at, right? Like, if you are getting into astrology, it's probably because you want to find the truth of things. So, you know, I just find that debilitated Jupiter can cause those issues with luck where someone's just not as lucky in the life experience. And that strong Jupiter is bringing that benefic sort of luck. And, you know, you'll also find if people are very Jupiterian, they're drawn to other people that are very Jupiter dominant as well too, because there's going to be that like, okay, we gel, you know, we're both going to see the good, we're both going to be optimistic and lucky, and there's going to be a similar wavelength there as well too. Okay, so I thought this was really, really important because again, it's one of those minute aspects of chart analysis, but if you miss it, you're going to miss so much of someone's life experience, right? Because I have seen so many instances where someone has been through crazy stuff in life, you know, near-death experiences, etc., but they have that strong Jupiter and they're like, you know what? I came out totally fine. They're like, I was so lucky. They're like, it worked out for me. That is Jupiter. Okay. If you've ever met someone where things are just always kind of working out for them, they probably have a strong Jupiterian influence. Okay. All right. And if you do have a strong Jupiter influence, you really want to understand that you're always going to be a natural guide, a natural counselor, that person that people are going to feel uplifted, to feel better. You're going to find people just come to you with their problems a lot. People just put their problems on you because you're going to be that sort of like optimistic light force that's like, okay, I can uplift this. I can see the good in it. It's very like that. One thing I did notice with really strong Jupiter energy is there is a need to be cautious of being overly optimistic, of like seeing too much good in people. I feel like when Jupiter is not well developed, maybe like earlier on in life, someone's so optimistic that they see too much good in people and situations. And there's a need to be a little bit more pragmatic or perhaps more practical at times, right? So that is important to note about strong Jupiter influence as well too. But, you know, Jupiter is the guide, it's the counselor, it's the guru, it's the, you know, wisdom, it's the person who's spiritually protected, it's luck. And there's really nothing more powerful than that force of luck that a really strong Jupiter can bring into someone's life. Okay. So let me know if you guys have a strong Jupiter. Comment your Jupiter placement or how it's affecting your personal chart down below. I would love to know, do you guys feel like you're, you know, really lucky throughout your life, or do you have a weak Jupiter? Do you feel like you kind of lack that luck? Very curious to see you. And I just love Jupiter so much. I feel like you guys can tell I get comments about Jupiter very often. All right, so that's what I wanted to discuss. And also let me know what you guys think about these videos where I'm just going into, the power of like strong planetary influence onto the chart. I thought the Saturn video was really, really well received. You guys had, really amazing comments about how accurate that was and how that's been so connected to your life experience. So I think there's a lot of power in discussing planetary influence in that way, right? Because it's really going to be felt in someone's life experience if they have really strong planetary influence on the foundational aspects of the chart: sun, moon, ascendant, and ascendant ruler. Okay. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have such a beautiful, blessed day. Comment, like, and subscribe so I can keep making content that you guys enjoy, and we will talk soon. All right. Bye, guys.